Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Sub-regional territories can either avoid or soften the blow of any predicted recession to come. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday, 13th January 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. The World Bank has predicted that the global economy may tip into a recession this year. Chartered accountant Richard Peter King says, in spite of the gloomy predictions, St. Lucia and other regional territories may not necessarily follow the trend of the downturn in their economies if this does happen. More in this DBS News World report.
Global growth is slowing sharply in the face of elevated inflation, higher interest rates, reduced investment, and disruptions caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, according to the World Bank's latest Global Economic Prospects report. Given the broadly worsening economic conditions, the World Bank has cut its growth outlook for 2023 from 3% to 1.7%, forecasting a global recession. A gloomy forecast indeed, says chartered accountant and partner at Grant Thornton Richard Pitterkin. However, he says we need to keep in mind that this is a prediction and not necessarily what will be.
When you look at what some of the other people are saying, Goldman Sachs, for example, is saying that the U.S. economy may avoid a recession entirely and that the Eurozone dodged the same bullet. So they are a little more bullish. They are saying that, okay, there are risks, but there's no guarantee based on what we're seeing that that's the way we're going to go. So they tend to be less gloomy than the World Bank, which is decidedly, less cherry than say what Wolfman is saying.
Developing countries facing heavy debt burdens and weak investment in business are said to be the ones which will be hit the hardest by a recession. The interesting thing, says Pitterkin, is that the growth of many of the small island developing states of the region, like St. Lucia, is driven almost entirely by tourism, which has been resilient to economic shocks, meaning they might not be affected as much as is being predicted.
Now, they also say that, there are problems with heavy debt burdens. Yes, we have a higher than let's just say, the level of our debt is higher than it should be, but it's not totally impossible or unaffordable. I think it's in the 90s, the debt to GDP. But the budget for 2022-23 suggested that, in fact, as a result of borrowing from sources that would be, at lower rates, that we would not see any increase in our interest rates and could afford slightly higher debt. We managed to deal with COVID, and we haven't seen any increase, even though there's been a bit of a spike in a later variant. So there's no indication that St. Lucia is going to have any bad impact from that. And, the two things that will still affect us is inflation. But Goldman Sachs is saying that seems to be under control and is actually going down. And global supply chains, which will still be a problem as long as there's war, but the world is learning to cope with it.
The best way for St. Lucia to get through this year, says Pitterkin, is for the government to do exactly what it said in its 2022-2023 budget. That is, to pump more money into infrastructural projects.
My suggestion to the government is let's get these projects going. Why is it taking so long to restart some of the projects on the roads, St. Jude's, the airport, that were basically either started or about to start back in 2021? We need to start those as early as possible to ensure that the global factors that could affect us and could bring about a recession in the world would not be as bad as is feared.
There is no reason, says Pitterkin, for us to believe that we can see ourselves through what may be a difficult year for the rest of the world. For the DBS News World, I am Zane Romulus.
Over in Trinidad and Tobago, the opposition there would like the public to take careful note and keep an eye out in the event that Christine Kangaloo becomes the next head of state to see whether she will grant a presidential pardon to King's Counsel Vincent Nelson. The UNC believes this is the main reason why the government has nominated Mrs. Kangaloo, who they say already has a track record of doing the PNM's bidding. Renessa Cutting of TV6 News has more.
The opposition UNC is suggesting that a political witch hunt is at the root of the government's nomination of Christine Kangaloo for head of state.
Anyone is concerned that there's a person named Vincent Nelson with a civil matter in the court now against the government, who has said that he's prepared to give testimony against political opponents of the PNM, namely Ramdeen and Ramlogan, if they pay him and grant him a presidential pardon. We are asking the question today, is it that the first order of business of President Christine Kangaloo, assuming she is the president of this country, is it her first order of business to grant a presidential pardon to Vincent Nelson, clearing the way for the withdrawal of that civil action against the government so they may recharge Anand Ramlogan and Gerald Ramdeen? That is the question.
The opposition believes the answer is yes and claims that there is precedent to support this view, given that Mrs. Kangaloo, in the capacity of acting president back in 2015, signed off on the order to dismiss Joala Rambaran as then central bank governor. Mr. Rambaran's firing was subsequently deemed unlawful by the court.
If Christine Kangaloo was acting president, she should have just been there to fulfill a role in case of emergency, war, pandemic, something, and just await the arrival of the substantive president. So that decision, a critical decision about removing a central bank governor that has now forced the state, you, the taxpayers, to pay millions of dollars. She should not have taken that decision. She should have watched that paper. It was not urgent. It could have waited the 2 days for the president to come back from wherever she went and let the real substantive president sign. That is very critical because it shows what will happen if, God forbid, we do not prevent this PNM Balize upon Balize across Balize.
The opposition is calling on PNM MPs to do as Dr. Rowley did back in 1997 and vote against the party's nominee for president.
So I appeal to members on the PNM bench. I appeal to the independent senators. You are not to follow the government. Keith Rowley has given you an escape hatch. He voted against the PNM candidate in Anthony Amos Lockie. You can vote against the PNM candidate in Christine Kangaloo. Follow your leader. That is what I say to the PNM MPs.
Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. The Ministry of National Security and the National Drug Council in Trinidad and Tobago came together on Wednesday to reveal how strategic approaches are working in the fight against illicit drug trafficking and to unveil the National Drug Council's new logo.
Trinidad continues to be a transshipment point for illicit drugs. This from Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines, who told the Pillar Talk Pillar Share Forum on Wednesday that it remains a real challenge.
We are not a manufacturing country. We continue, as PS said a while ago, to be a trafficking hub for narcotics that come from neighboring South America and Central America.
He talked about the many discoveries of illegal drugs by the police, one of the largest in January 2022, a seizure of ketamine in Trin City worth $8 million. But he said the government is up to the challenge and is using a multi-pronged approach.
And the highest priority for national security is that of our border security, recognizing we are a twin island state with a few legal ports, but substantially more illegal points of entry that we have the responsibility to protect and to cover.
Minister Hines said the problem is not a unitary one and is being faced by the regional community, but solutions are being shared.
Recently, CARICOM, through CARICOM Impacts, introduced a CARICOM Crime Gun Intelligence Unit, again demonstrating our collaboration in the region. So now we have a region-wide intelligence operation to support our work.
The National Drug Council used the conference to reveal their new logo with a hope that it will be a beacon for those working to end the battle against illicit drugs. Marie-Therese Bernard, TTT News.
One of the changes coming to the St. Kitts and Nevis Citizenship by Investment CBI program is the end of the alternative investment option, said Michael Martin, the new CEO of the CI unit. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline reports.
One of the changes coming to the St. Kitts and Nevis Citizenship by Investment program is the end of the alternative investment option, said Michael Martin, the new CEO of the Citizenship by Investment unit. According to CEO Martin, the replacement program is designed to bring direct development to St. Kitts and Nevis, such as skills transfer, employment, and services.
The alternative investment option will be replaced by the public good investment option and will be focused on effecting real transformation for the country by investing into areas that will benefit the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. Investors will be required to apply to the Board of Governors to be designated as a public good investor. Approved public good investments must bring substantial benefit to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, maximize local employment, embark upon programs including transfer of technology and local capacity building, assume all financial risks involved with the project, and if the investment results in a real estate development project on state land, the developer must agree to transfer all real estate to the state on substantial completion.
Martin said the minimum investment for approved public good investments is US $175,000, making it a competitive option for investors. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
The United Progressive Party, the UPP of Antigua and Barbuda, has stated its immigration intention for non-nationals from within the Caribbean. More in this ABS News report with Sasha Dean.
United Progressive Party leader Howard Lovell expounded on his party's proposal for a One Caribbean Act if it were to be elected to office. Lovell says this proposal follows several meetings by his party with the people of the country.
We have been on the road for the past 2.5 years. We've had an opportunity to visit just about every village and every community around the island. This has allowed us to hear what the real concerns of residents and citizens are.
Mr. Lovell says the legislation would be enacted by March should his party be successful at the January 18 polls.
Under the One Caribbean Act, effective 1st March 2023, the new UPP administration will waive all work permit fees for nationals of CARICOM and the Dominican Republic who have been working and resident in Antigua and Barbuda on or before January 1st, 2023.
The political leader says further adjustments will be made to the country's current work permit arrangements.
Work permits for nationals of CARICOM and the Dominican Republic will be replaced by the One Caribbean Employment Stamp, which will be transferable from one employer to another within the same industry and same job class.
Meanwhile, the United Progressive Party plans to make citizenship more accessible to people of Antiguan and Barbudan descent. That, he explains, will require a referendum.
We will seek to amend the Constitution, and we will do so by advocating for a change whereby we will extend the entitlement for citizenship beyond grandparents to great-grandparents.
Sasha Dean for ABS News.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.